Well, again, thank you so much for the spotlight. That is definitely an honor. I'm Jocelyn Ross in South Carolina, and we have South Carolina Hands and Voices. My journey started 13 years ago. My baby girl, Alyssa Ross, is 13 this year, and we found out about her hearing loss because she failed the newborn hearing screening in 2009. And so our journey took us to several doctor's appointments trying to get a firm diagnosis. And she did have a hearing loss, and she ended up having a progressive loss over 2 to 3 years. And for us, we chose the direction of doing cochlear implants. But I remember in the early years, so much speech therapy and stuff. And once you know, because many of you all know, over 95% of the children are born to hearing families. And over 90% of those don't have any prior experience with hearing loss. So it was natural for it to be new, and me just wanting to absorb as much information as I could. And I wanted to speak to other people who were on the journey. And it was actually a mom that we met and was just talking at speech therapy. He said, we have to get a group. And you start looking around, and we saw some stuff in North Carolina, and we tried to replicate that here in Columbia. But then we learned of Hands and Voices National, and we loved everything that it stood for, the mission, just the hands plus the voices, because families' journeys pivot. And if you isolate to just one knowing and not the other, and don't have that balance of information, it could make those pivots even harder to do. So we like the umbrella approach, and just non-bias is huge, and recognizing your bias if you do for one lens or another. But we thought it was great with the mission and all that they do with Eddie and legislation and advocacy. It really followed suit, and it gave us a model, because National does so much already. It's like, why reinvent the wheel? We agree with the mission, so support it. And I got more involved because in South Carolina, when our daughter was diagnosed and we're going through the process of hearing aids, we found out insurance didn't cover it in our state. And so I started Let's South Carolina Here to try to advocate for that. And we had a bill in the House and Senate. But we'll fast forward to it's 13 years later, and we still don't have a bill. But a mom in Georgia reached out, and she said, well, can I do Let Georgia Hear? And her advocacy was huge. And now Georgia has hearing aid coverage through that. But in looking at that, I said, well, what was it that made it go so fast? And they had such a community in Georgia of their deaf and hard of hearing families. And I said, it can't just be one or two families. We have to build the community. So under the leadership of Hands and Voices and all they have, I kind of pivoted from the legislation to finding the families and finding that network and connecting families. And so I took over as the director in South Carolina just before COVID. And that kind of launched us into trying to do more statewide travel. And we would just do a simple model because of COVID, people wanted to be outside. So you find a nice park, you advertise, just come, small snacks and stuff. And it really has been that we've been trying to do a lot with connecting families. And that's been really important. And I think we're getting more of a footing in South Carolina. Yes, we're an all-volunteer chapter. We're a 501c3, but we don't have a direct funding source. As you look at the different Hands and Voices, some may get funding through funneled through Eddie or other agencies, maybe the School Deaf and Blind partnerships and things like that. We're completely volunteer, and we rely on donations. And grants that have come through, we've had a couple of fortunate years where another agency, Beginnings SC, has been awarded some funds and has given us at least $2,000 the last couple of years. But any funding that we get, we're writing grants and trying to get information. We ask for donation times here and there, but we really have operated for a majority of our program with less than $2,000-$3,000 in just volunteer funds. Definitely see on my journey, balance is important. I think we all have that need just for wanting to be connected with other parents and even just our children's identity. Some of the things I come across with Alyssa with her questions of, why am I the only one who's deaf? There's nobody in the school like me. That can be so very motivating for a parent lead that's wanting to do this. As well as early on in the journey, you do so many appointments and stuff. So trying to get a twofer out of the things that I do. Like the mingle we had last weekend. My daughter had an upgrade for her device and we were traveling to Charleston. I'm in the Columbia area, middle of the state. Charleston is further down. I'm like, well, I'm going for the doctor's appointment. Let me try to get a mingle in and go the night before and get the families. So I find myself doing that. She's in summer camp. It's away in a different part of the state. And I'm like, well, is there a park around here that I can get? And that varies because parks can be free. Parks can be $25. It's always great to reserve it. And I like the park and the park shelters because rain or shine, I don't have to cancel, and that can be a less expensive way. And then a lot of the equipment is already there. Just let the kids play. You have the playground. So it cuts down on a lot. Dollar store is definitely my friend. It's waterproof paint, it'll wash off. It won't mess up. The canvases and the little craft pieces that I can just wash them off and reuse them. And $1 a child, if I get stencils or different things like that, it's definitely something very easy to do. So I have kind of created a keep it simple model with just dollar store crafts, keeping it to a location it has the events, and trying to make it fit into my schedule so it's not so time consuming. And then utilizing your board, often they're in different parts of the state, trying to see when it can work around another parent's soccer schedule. We may have one person do all of the national calls. We may have one parent do a mingle in their area. And then we also take advantage of virtual with Zoom because COVID, they allowed it to be free for families and personal use. So we were able to get some online community built by using those things. And it's good resources. And then even for marketing, canva.com has been a great presence to get the word out with the social media, a lot of templates, and actually you can get some of the premium stuff in a free package because you're a nonprofit organization. So connecting with Hands and Voices National on Facebook group to hear what other states are doing too, their ideas. Some have done book clubs. I'm like, oh, they already vetted the book club, so I'm just going to adopt the same book, or they're doing something else, Topic Tuesdays. I said, I love that idea. We'll do Tuesdays topics, so I kind of pivot. And so you make it a balance and don't reinvent the wheel and let those connections be your resources to just jump from there. And it can, maximize your time by using other resources. Again, my daughter's 13, and with me traveling the state, even just for our referrals, because we get referrals in, and it'll be a limited number of us that'll do the callbacks and stuff. But it's so interesting to see a family later on who's like, oh, she was the person I spoke to on the phone. And I just remember just stopping and being in a parking lot and just wanting to hear what she had to say. It's just, that's what keeps you going, the connection and the need. Or doing a mingle and a mom writing back and saying that her son, even at 3, was like, Mommy, he had a device just like me. And it made them feel good, because you'd be surprised at how young kids realize those differences with whether they're manual or oral communication, they're aided or not aided. And everybody these days want identity. And again, even my daughter with her own personal stories, but it's something about too with hope. I find here in the state, it's a lot of the younger families new to the journey that get involved, and it's because they're new and they want to know the information. And I'm trying to bring the middle schoolers and high schoolers in those families, because you kind of get comfortable. They start to be in school, you don't have as many appointments anymore, but everybody has something to show on their story. And so for a younger family to see a kid who's older, or that mom to get that tip from somebody further on their journey, it's really important. And it does a lot to see the kids come back and you see them grown up, or you do a mingle and you come back and say, oh yeah, we exchanged numbers at the mingle. So we did Halloween trick-or-treating. We found out we were down the street from each other. So sometimes it's just enough to ignite something and a ripple effect happens from it. And you don't always see that buy-in or those direct responses, but you have to keep going because it's definitely happening and taking root and growing. And sometimes you may never know, but you believe in the mission and you know you needed it, so others need it. So it's about that service that you get filled up, and even modeling that for my children, that it's about giving back and connecting. And so I call my daughter my VP. She goes, she helps me set it up, and I'm like, you need to be in charge of the kids, help with the activities, and that gives our kiddos leadership skills too. And one thing we do with the mingles, we like keeping it simple so families know what to expect. You know, everybody's anxiety is so up now with everything that's happening in the community. For them to just expect that same template. I know sometimes you're thinking, oh, well, maybe it gets bored. Maybe I need to do this. By keeping it simple, keep the same flyer, change the color. You know, it doesn't have to be so much time in it. But sometimes that simple makes it comfortable for a family to know, I'm coming here. This is what I can expect. We do a group huddle, usually around when it's snack time or to get some pizza, where people can go round robin in case they're not comfortable mingling and so forth. But they always know what to expect at a mingle. And I think that gets them more comfortable coming. So it's just doing good service that keeps it going. And definitely I'm only here because, like I said, the chapter connections with doing that and how National and Headquarters sends out the notes of what other people are doing. Again, you just can take so much from there. But as simple as a process you can, I think you have less burnout. And then the other tip is a buddy system. You know, we're trying to get more local, regional parent leads. And I think when you can get a model that's simple and you can get that buddy system, you have that person you know you can rely on. So I find even within my board, we have buddy systems with the tasks and they take ownership and lead for it. So trying to get that vision out to everyone else and being flexible. What is it that you can do? Sometimes I don't just say, I need you to do this. What can you do as far as a task? You come up with something, and then usually they're able to stick to it because it's within the parameters of what they're able to do. You'll get more longevity out of them. And the best compliment is a copycat. So like our next chapter we're doing is we've copied from another state who did a family conference. So this September, we're launching our first Deaf and Hard of Hearing family conference. And go on people's site. You may not be attending the conference, but go through that registration form and copy all of those questions. You know, copy their media policy and release policy. I do the same thing with Hands and Voices. Looking at your marketing and what you put on the flyers and how you advertise. I just change it and say South Carolina, you know. And it just starts, it gives you so much for a platform. So I'm hoping this conference will do well. We have a great lineup, and to be able to call another chapter and get that information, and they're being so friendly to share is awesome to do. So yeah. And I'm definitely an introvert. This is not my nature, but it's something with your kids that make you do it. And just get out of your comfort zone and ask the questions, because I've never had anybody be dismissive or felt like I was taking up their time asking the questions. So just ask it. You'd be surprised.